And so God gave me Job, the 16th chapter, and beginning at verse number 1. And, and I'm going to verse number 5. And the Bible says, Then Job answered and said, I have heard many such things. Miserable comforters are ye all. Shall vain words have an end? Of what emboldeneth thee that thou answerest? I also could speak as you do, if your souls were in my stead. I could heap up words against you and shake my head at you. But I would strengthen you with my mouth, and the moving of my lips would assuage your grief. And so pretty much what is happening is Job is saying to them that you haven't done a good job comforting me. But if I was in your place, I'd treat you differently. And so many of you may be familiar with the story of Job, but for those who may not be, I just want to quickly give you a review. Because if you know the story of Job, you know that he is in a great deal of pain. Because he has lost all of his wealth. He has lost all of his property. He has lost all 10 of his children. And something that many people overlook is he has lost the support of his wife. But the thing you also have to remember, even though they don't mention it, is that his wife is suffering too. So in her grief, she may have not spoke accurately or properly, but she was hurting too. And so they never mentioned her again, but I always wondered, I said, well, God must have chose, Job because there was something he wanted to point out. I said, but his wife was hurting too. She had lost wealth. She had lost property. She had lost 10 children. And now she has lost her husband as well in his grief. So not only must we deal, then I'm going to say, and then what happens is, after he's had all of these losses, he is suddenly struck with sickness and disease. So not only does he have to deal with the loss of this great loss, he also has to deal with the sickness that is in his body as he sorrows. And so he's not only dealing with his sick, but he's also dealing with rejection and the sorrow. And it is at this point that Job's friends decide to come and comfort him. So when Job's friends first arrived, they saw their friend in pain and supported him with their presence. They gave him space to grieve in his way. However, after a few days, they decided to investigate the reason why Job was in this situation. And by doing so, they actually added insult to injury by asking him the why question. Why is this happening to you, Job? What have you done to cause this calamity and suffering to come upon you and your family? See, the thing is, when folks are grieving, the right words are often hard to come by. And on occasion, the individual may put their feet in their mouths. Job's friends were no exception, and for some reason, they thought if Job would tell what he did, they would understand the why. And that would bring both them and him comfort. If you read the book of Job, you would know that their questions were actually accusations regarding something he had did wrong. In the cases of death by injury or sickness, most of the time we know the physical explanation behind the death. But the question of why becomes different. Why did they have to go now? So why is the question that tends to be asked by many after anyone's death. And but after anyone, typically no answer to the why is adequate for those who are grieving a loss. Oh, yeah, I'm going in because I got to tell y'all something. In the case of suicide, the why is even more difficult to understand. If we spoke to Job today, he would say, I understand your loss, but I really don't understand that kind of loss. Because death by suicide is different. And because it is different, we ask ourselves other questions. Why did they do it? Why didn't they seek help? Why didn't they reach out to somebody? Even me. Why did they choose to leave me? And why now? Accompanying such questions comes feelings of guilt and shame, even if there is no logical reasons for it. In other words, we begin to feel all alone. You see? But listen, I know I worked in the school for 25 years. And I served on a lot of crisis teams and situations where we had to try to comfort those that had major loss. And while I was working in schools, quite often the young people would ask this same question. And we understand that the research tells us that it is a very common question. And this question actually provides an opportunity to talk about mental health. And so as we, psychologists and counselors, we would talk to the students about the connection between depression, substance abuse, and other mental health problems. But before I do that, I must say, this is preemptive, the answer is a common answer and may not fit all situations. So I'm asking you for grace in advance, because for some it may be useful and for others it may not. But many of us know that as I give you the explanation, that there are a lot of parts that are true. So I'm sharing with you today that everyone feels sad at times. However, some people have mental illness called depression. Most people never feel as sad as someone with depression. When people are depressed, they stop feeling happy about almost everything. When they are depressed, they do not make good choices or good decisions. So let me stress this as strongly as I can, that when people have a significant degree of depression, they are not thinking clearly, and they cannot make good decisions. They tend to be unable to identify any other alternative for helping themselves feel better other than death. They may not even ask for help to come up with another idea to stop feeling sad. Death by suicide is not a logical act, but often results instead from depression or substance abuse or mental illness. So others, especially friends and loved ones, may never be able to fully understand why it happened. Let me say that again so you can be very clear. Death by suicide is not a logical act, but often results instead from depression, substance abuse, or mental illness. So others, especially friends and loved ones, may never be able to fully understand why it happened. When someone we love dies by suicide, we have many different feelings, including feeling very sad ourselves. Feeling sad after death, though, does not mean that you're depressed. It is important to talk to someone about how you're feeling so that you can have some help to feel better and to answer any questions or worries that you may have about what happened. Need to talk to somebody. Need to seek out somebody. You need to identify somebody who you feel is capable of supporting you. It may not be everybody, but you need to search out those people who you have the kind of relationship with, who you can hear and who can help. Now, normally I get all into it, but I want to make sure y'all get this information so you can have clarity. All right? Now that we give you some similitude of an answer to why and why we have difficulty comprehending and understanding. Now let me share a few words of advice regarding supporting those who have experienced a death by suicide so that, like Job's friends, we do not put our feet in our mouth. So the first thing I want to share with you is listening is far more important than talking. When supporting someone who has lost a loved one through death by suicide, listening is the ultimate thing you can do. When they're ready to talk, let them talk. Please don't tell a story that you have that's similar to theirs. Just listen. It's their grief, not yours. Listen to them. If you need support, then find somebody to support you. If it brings up something in you, find someone to support you. But you got to hear them. That's one. Number two, express your sorrow for their loss. Just look them in the eye and say, I'm deeply saddened by your loss. And I'll miss them as well. Right? Because there are many possible responses to the situation like this, but the primary thing you want to say is along the line of your sorrow for their loss. However you speak these words to the ones who have experienced death of a lost one, it is highly probable that they will feel some degree of comfort. Number three, a commitment. You must have a commitment, or if you are capable of it, and if it's an honest statement, then you want to express your commitment to remain present in the now and in the future. They may not want to talk at that moment, they say, but I'm here with you now. And I will be here with you in the future. Because after so many weeks, everything starts dropping off. Everybody starts forgetting. Everybody starts returning back to their normal way of doing things. But things are not normal for those that are grieving. And so the time they're going to need the most support is further into the future. When those ebbs and flows occur. When one day they feeling good and the next day they see a candy bar and Wawa. And it brings back all those thoughts. You never know when it's going to happen. You know, it's like excuse my expression, it's like a ninja. You know, it just leaps out of nowhere. You didn't know where it was coming from. And it's going to happen. And there's no shame in it. I'm sorry the people around you can't understand it. There's no shame in it. It's your feelings. Feel them. Hallelujah. Number 4, offer practical as well as emotional support. What that means is it's not always wrong to do something. Because there's a lot of things that people who have experienced loss, you know, they thinking about the loss. They're not thinking about all those activities and all those things that surround it. I mean, and I didn't realize it until, I don't know when I realized it. I remember looking in the house and said, oh my God, this house is destroyed. I said, we ain't been cleaning up for a week. We just been running back and forth. And, you know, I forgot all about the stuff. You know? And so it's good to say, hey, listen, maybe I can stop past and, you know, help you tidy up. You know, maybe I can bring some food, you know, along when I'm on my way. I just bring you some groceries, you know. I stop past your house and make some bacon and eggs. You know, if you don't eat that, I'll make turkey bacon. Oh, yeah. You know, but practical things aren't wrong. You know, you can do stuff for people. The next thing is just respect their grieving process. Grief is unpredictable, and it comes in many forms and expressions. Allow people to grieve in the way that is most natural and comfortable for them. There is no right way to grieve. It's only your way. And then be sure to say what is supportive. And when you're doing that, you just have to be honest. If you don't know what to say, don't try to say something. Tell them, I have no idea what to say, but I'm here for it. You know, you just have to be wise and use compassionate words and sayings. And that was the problem, really, with Job's friends. They did well when they were present for him. They did well when they sat in sorrow with him. But the moment they decided to speak, they didn't know how to use compassionate words. They began to accuse and say foolish things that put Job in the position to have to defend himself while he's hurting, sad, sorrow, feeling rejected and alone. The only thing they could do was provoke him to defend himself. You'll be surprised at what little things we say make a person feel like they need to defend themselves. You know what I mean? Little simple things. It's almost like if I say something, you say something that minimizes my grief. He's in a better place. See, I almost cussed right there. I was telling you, it's true. I'm just telling you, because I want to tell you, you know, you got a major problem. Nobody ain't thinking about no better place. They thinking about their loss. Now, if they say they're in a better place, then go along. But don't you bring it up. Don't you say foolishness like that. Let me finish on. So when speaking of death, use neutral terms such as died by suicide, took their life, or chose to end their life. Because when you use the word commit, it's a crime. So you don't say they committed. No. You say they died by suicide. They took their life. So when phoning, and I had to add texting, phoning, texting, or in person, express your feelings using phrases like, so sorry for your loss. I know how much you loved Raham. This must be so hard for you. I want you to feel safe sharing with me. You can talk now or later. I'm here for you. More practical, can I make dinner? Can I do your laundry? Can I run a few errands for you? And then the final thing you might want to remember is that with the person's permission, you can tell stories about the good times. You know, because people always like to hear about the good things the person did, how they impacted your life, how they made you feel. You know, because a lot of times when I was with my sisters, she broke out some pretty funny stuff. You know, I read a few letters and she was about as good a jokester as I am. I had competition. I had some competition in running too. You know, that's right. She was a state kind of championship long distance runner. And I thought I was putting it in, but no, she got me. So just avoid insensitive words or phrases. Oh no, what happened? Not that. How did they do that? Very insensitive. Because it doesn't matter how they did it. Greeting person, why would you even ask something like that? Don't say things like there's a purpose for it. There's a reason for it. God's got a plan for it. I'm telling you, nobody is interested in that. They're interested in being comforted. Now listen, I made that as short as I could. So bottom line is, in the end, when Job's family failed him and his friends failed him, he turned to the one person he knew would be there no matter what. And that was God. He took his complaints and his pain to God. He fussed some other people out, and they deserved it. I'm just telling you, you get fussed out for saying it. All right. But he then turns to God, and he makes his complaint with God. You know the funniest thing? God can handle it. You know, God ain't like us, has so much power. What you doing talking to me? I got power, I'll knock you out. That ain't the way God operates. God has so much power, he recognizes his power. And he knows when to use it appropriately and how to use it. So he hears Job's complaint. And like I've told many people, I said, when he responds in the manner that addresses Job in his character. Don't mean he's going to address you like that. He addressed you according to who you are and how you operate. He knows when to comfort and he knows when to rebuke. So he knows how to talk to people. He knows your maturity level in him. And he knows how to respond. And he always responds in the way that best helps you. And so he responds to Job. He tells Job, you know, what he really needs to do. Because in the end, Job prayed for those that persecuted him. And he found comfort in the words of God. See, it is good to have the comfort of your family. Embrace it. It is good to have supports of your friends. Welcome it. But in the end, there's nothing like the presence of God. Secret. Because there is no one else who can truly understand your loss like God. Now, you might have missed this because God suffered too. You may not be aware of it, but God lost a child. He lost his only begotten son. And through his death, we have access to God. But God understands loss. He understands our situation. And because he understands, you can embrace God. And ultimately, you must trust God. Because God himself will bring you through. God himself. God, if you have God on your side, you can be certain that where everyone else fails, God will be there. He can be places that nobody else can be. He can be with you in those dark hours when you're alone. He can be with you in those odd places where you have breakdowns in your car. He can be with you when nobody else knows. God knows. And the best thing about God knowing, he hears and he responds. He'll bring comfort from places you never expected. He'll bring joy at times that you would never understand. But somehow, he is always there for you. So you have to have God on your side. You have to have God as your strength and comforter. Because God will never leave you nor forsake you. And the favorite scripture from my executive pastor, Proverbs 3rd chapter, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your path. A lot of this you may not understand, but just keep clinging and holding on to God. Just keep holding on. You know the old song, I'm just holding on. I'm just holding on, and I won't let go of my faith. I was watching, and I got to stop. I was watching Castaway with Tom Hanks. And he attempted different things to get off that island, but he kept getting stuck and get stuck. Then one day he said, after so many things I went through, he said, I learned something. He said, and that was that I just got to keep on breathing. He said, I just learned to keep on breathing. He said, because you never know what God might bring in. So just keep on breathing. You might not be able to do a lot. Just keep on breathing. Keep on breathing and keep on trusting, because God will never fail. God bless y'all.